Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into the world of distillery work. And I have to admit, my initial thoughts go right to rustic charm, those images of aging barrels and copper stills.
Yeah, it really does have a certain romanticism, doesn't it?
It totally does. But looking at the information from RoleCatcher, it seems like there's a lot more to it than that. Like it's a lot more hands-on, a lot more technical than I think people might realize.
You're absolutely right. Distillery work, it's about so much more than just the look and feel of it all. It's about being right there in the thick of it, managing these really intricate processes and some seriously impressive machinery. I mean, we're talking huge copper stills, delicate filtration systems, even these automated bottling lines. There's a lot involved.
So then let's break that down a bit. When we're talking about operating and maintaining that kind of equipment, what does that actually look like? What does RoleCatcher say about the skills involved?
So it's really a fascinating blend. It's that technical know-how combined with, honestly, some good old-fashioned craftsmanship. RoleCatcher talks a lot about how workers need a good grasp of the science behind distillation. Things like understanding precise temperature control and really being able to manage fermentation processes. But then you also need that meticulous eye for detail, that hands-on feel.
So it's not just a matter of pushing buttons, there's real expertise needed here.
Absolutely. I mean, take, for example, using a pot still. That's a more traditional piece of equipment they use a lot in whiskey production. To use that well, you need a really deep understanding of timing, temperatures, and how to actually make adjustments while it's running to make sure you get that quality product. It's almost like, and I know this sounds strange, but it's like conducting an orchestra, just with a lot more alcohol involved.
And probably with a lot more at stake if something goes wrong. It makes sense then why RoleCatcher puts so much emphasis on safety in this line of work.
Oh, absolutely. Safety is critical in this environment.
Right.
You're dealing with high-proof alcohol, often in large quantities. So one misstep could be a disaster, right? Not just ruining the batch, but also putting people at risk. RoleCatcher is very clear that deep respect for safety protocols is non-negotiable.
So how does that emphasis on safety protocols, how does that actually play out on a day-to-day basis? What are distillery workers doing to make sure everything runs smoothly?
Well, according to RoleCatcher, it really comes down to meticulous procedures. So workers need to be really comfortable with things like personal protective equipment, all the PPE, doing regular checks on the equipment, and just strictly adhering to those safety guidelines, remember. Consistency and quality, those are paramount in this industry.
You mentioned consistency there, and it makes me think about how that need for precision, for safety, all of that, how does it impact the final product?
You're exactly right. They are connected. Every single step in this whole process, from watching those massive copper stills to making sure you have the right filtration, it all directly affects the aroma, the taste, even how it feels in your mouth. Ultimately, that entire experience of enjoying a spirit comes down to all those little details.
So essentially, when we're sitting there enjoying a really good, high-quality spirit, we're appreciating all that work, all those intricate processes, and the skilled people behind them.
Precisely. It's truly a testament to their expertise and their dedication to this craft. But it's not a solitary endeavor. It's not just one person doing it all. RoleCatcher is very clear on that. Teamwork is essential in a distillery.
Makes sense, because even with all the automation you mentioned, it can't just be one person running the show, right?
Exactly. Think about it. These are large-scale operations, and they've got multiple stages happening all at the same time. You need a team that's really in sync, from grinding those grains to managing fermentation, all the way to aging and finally bottling it up. Communication and collaboration, those are key here.
And I'd imagine that need for teamwork goes beyond just those day-to-day tasks, right? Because RoleCatcher also touches on career progression.
They do, and this is where it gets really interesting, because starting out as a distillery worker doesn't mean you're stuck there forever. So you might begin by mastering those foundational skills, maybe rolling barrels, helping with bottling, or learning how to maintain the equipment.
So almost like an apprenticeship then. You work your way up, gaining that experience as you go.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And as you prove yourself, obviously, more opportunities open up. RoleCatcher mentioned moving into more supervisory roles, maybe even managing a team down the line.
Yeah.
Or you could go a different route and specialize. I mean, becoming a master distiller, that's got to be the dream for some people. Or focusing on the quality control side of things.
So there are all these different paths you can take depending on what you're really interested in.
Exactly. And those paths can lead to some really cool roles, let me tell you. Like, imagine being the one responsible for crafting a brand new spirit. Or, picture this, you're overseeing the aging process in this huge warehouse stacked high with oak barrels.
Okay, now you're bringing back that romantic vision I had earlier. But let's get back to reality for a sec, because RoleCatcher also had a whole section on interview prep for distillery jobs. What should someone expect if they're serious about landing one of these jobs?
Oh, they really got into the nitty-gritty, which is great. So obviously you'll get those usual questions about your work experience and why you're interested in the field. But RoleCatcher really emphasized the need to show a genuine understanding of how distilling works.
So you can't just wing it based on your love of a good bourbon.
I mean, it helps,
Mm.
but yeah, they'll want more than that. They might ask about different kinds of stills or fermentation techniques, even how you'd handle a problem during production. It's really about showing you can walk the walk, not just talk about enjoying the final product.
So definitely brush up on the science behind it all. Now, what about the more hands-on aspects? Did RoleCatcher give any examples of what those tasks might actually be?
Oh, for sure. They highlighted things like learning how to operate the equipment, but under supervision, of course, assisting with all that maintenance and cleaning. Distilleries have to be spotless. And then, yeah, you've got your iconic tasks like rolling those heavy barrels and stamping the barrel heads.
So even with all this talk about high-tech equipment, sounds like there's still a place for good old-fashioned hard work.
Totally. It's really balanced. I mean, you could be at a digital control panel 1 minute, then hand labeling bottles the next.
It's interesting how those more traditional methods still fit in with the modern side of the industry. Speaking of, we touched on technology's role in distilleries earlier. What did RoleCatcher have to say about that?
They talked a lot about how distilleries are using more and more technology these days to improve efficiency and consistency. Think about it. You've got things like automated systems that precisely control the temperature during fermentation, or these really high-tech filtration systems that wouldn't have been around years ago.
But that means workers need to keep up, right? Be adaptable and willing to learn new things.
Exactly. It's not like the old days with that one lone distiller hunched over a still.
Definitely not. So even though it's a field steeped in tradition, there's that need to stay updated and embrace innovation. Did RoleCatcher have any advice for how someone could keep pace with all the changes?
They did. They really emphasized the importance of always learning, subscribing to industry publications to see what's new, maybe attending conferences or trade shows to connect with other people in the industry, and even joining those professional associations. And honestly, networking is huge too.
So you really do have to stay ahead of the curve, it seems. It makes you wonder, though, how will all this new technology actually impact distillery work in the long run?
It's a good question and something worth thinking about. Like, as automation becomes even more common in distilleries, is it going to enhance what distillery workers can do? Or will we get to a point where, I don't know, maybe you don't need that human touch anymore?
It's like that classic debate, right? Are robots going to take over? Will we get to a point where it's machines that are carefully fine-tuning fermentation, making those tiny adjustments to the distillation process?
I mean, it's possible, right? But I think there's something to be said for the human element, especially in this industry. You know, when a master distiller makes a tiny change based on years of experience, that intuition they have for blending different batches together to get a specific flavor that's got to be hard to program into a machine.
It's that combination of art and science that's what I find so fascinating. And we've covered a lot, the technical stuff, the importance of safety, how physical the work can be, and even all those career paths. But there is that creative side, that passion for making something really unique, something high quality.
Exactly. And you can really feel that passion in the final product. You can taste the dedication, all that attention to detail, honestly, even generations of tradition that are poured into every bottle. It speaks to the skill and honestly, the artistry of those people behind the scenes.
It's true, and maybe that's what makes this whole line of work, this whole world of distillery work so intriguing, because it's a field that respects that tradition, but also embraces new ideas and new technology.
Absolutely. It's like you're carrying on a craft that's been around for, I don't know how many centuries, and at the same time, you're open to those new techniques, new technologies that can make it even better.
Such a cool combination. So as we wrap up this deep dive into distillery work, is there one big thing you really hope listeners take away from this conversation?
You know, I think the biggest takeaway here is that distillery work, it's a lot more than it might seem at first glance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it demands that technical expertise, that attention to detail, and you absolutely need to be serious about safety. But it also gives you a chance to be part of something that has so much history behind it, a chance to make something truly special, and to never stop learning, honestly.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the most rewarding career paths are those that really challenge you to use, well, everything you've got.
Yeah.
Your mind, your skills, even your creativity. blending that science with artistry to make something truly exceptional. And on that note, I'd say cheers to everyone out there exploring new career paths and uncovering what's out there. Until next time, happy learning.